Okay, Jim, we're going live on YouTube.
Thank you, Mac. I'd like to call the meeting of the Elko County School District Board of Trustees to order. Will you please join us in a pledge to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, and under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item number 103 on our agenda, approval of the agenda for possible action.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion by Teresa, seconded by Robert, to approve the agenda. Is there any additions or comments? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of adopting the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and the agenda is adopted. Item 1.04, receive a presentation from Dr. Putnam, Public Health Officer. This is a non-action item. Dr. Putnam.
Is that okay? Oh, there we go.
That's better.
Thank you, board, for having me today. I appreciate being here. For the record, Dr. Bryce Putnam, Elko County Health Officer, CDC Foundation Regional Clinical Director, Associate Dental Director, and Clinical Instructor from the University of Nevada School of Medicine. I'd like to talk tonight about two items, and then it's just a little speech with some bullet points, and wait for the end. And if you guys want to talk about anything, discuss it with anything. But we're going to set a precedent today with some mutual respect. And I want to make sure that I present that. 3 months ago, I took a class, and in that class, it stated, basically it was called Crucial Conversations. And it was a 4-week-long, 25-hour symposium on learning about crucial conversations. And what I've learned about crucial conversations is that when stakes and emotions are high and we have opposing viewpoints, this is when communication is absolutely crucial. And I don't think that anywhere in the world that we've ever found that communication could be more crucial than what we've dealt with over the past 15 months. So the two items I'd like to talk tonight are the Elko High School closure and the future for everyone after this pandemic, and what's it going to look like, or if we stay in the pandemic, what it's going to look like for our society, for the schools. But first, I want to address the high school closure. And I think that the question that everybody is asking is the why. Why did we do it? And I wanted to come here today and be very transparent and talk to everybody about the why, because I think that this is a very public matter and everybody should be in the know, and we should all be transparent about actually what happened. So I want to first state that during the week, even though I work 100 hours, every week, I'm in constant contact with my team, and my team being the county manager, which is Amanda Osborne, and my contact tracers, who is the lead one, who is Amber Dinelli. And as cases come in or as situations are happening, I get updates, and sometimes it's during the day, and sometimes it's most of the time it's at the end of the day, because that's when all of the cases from the clinics come in into the system. And what we do is to make sure that it doesn't go to the state, because sometimes the state has a lag time of 3 to 5 days of when we get these positive cases. So what I've instructed most of the clinics in town to do is to email our contact tracers directly if there's a positive case, so we know at real time kind of when it's happening. And sometimes it's not real time, but at the end of the day, I usually have a good estimate of what's happening. So during the week of, I think it was the 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, that week, we started seeing some cases, some initial cases, and I was very concerned. I was in constant contact with my team, as well as Dr. Robinson. I make it a point to talk to the stakeholders involved with any of these things because they can reach out to me and have questions, especially when we're dealing with outbreaks. And in a world where, you know, we're saying that vaccinated people can not wear a mask and you're on the honor system, I think that, you know, it's good for everybody who isn't vaccinated or who is trying to wear a mask to know where the outbreaks are going and where they're happening. Now, we don't always specifically say where it is, but, you know, the news is pretty good about finding out where that is. And Elko High School is pretty hard to, you know, keep that quiet. So with the cases rolling in on Tuesday, I was having a warning where Dr. Robinson and I did have a conversation. And I said, my first thought is two things. It's graduation and it's variance. Because 3 weeks ago, before this virus, before the outbreak in the Elko High School, 3 weeks before that, we had 0 cases in the hospital. And within 48 hours, we had 16 people in the hospital. And we were all perplexed. So I started doing genetic sequencing. I had a directive for the hospital, anybody that is admitted to have genetic sequencing that we send to the Nevada Health State Lab. And we have these sequenced so I know which variants are. So at that time, there was 5 cases of notable variant of South African variant in the whole state. Within that week, we had 11 cases here in Elko County. And of those 11 cases, 7 of those people went to the hospital, some in the ICU, some transferred to University of Utah and to another hospital. So these things were on my mind because at that week, when you send in for genetic sequencing, we don't know when it is. It comes in when it comes in. And so by the time Thursday came and I got the final notice, there was 23 active cases at Elko High School. With 23 active cases, there was also 11 cases that were in all the other schools from contacts with the 23 people at Elko High School. And there was an additional 39 people throughout the community. Now, to the 39 people, I would say a significant number. I don't know exactly because the contact tracers were still working on everybody, you know, getting contacted, but a significant number would all trace back to the Elko High School outbreak. So I had variants on my mind and I had graduation. And I want you to know that this was one of the most agonizing recommendations I have ever made in my life. I remember last year when the seniors had to have parades and I was outside trying at Spring Creek High School, trying to get people enthused and we were encouraging people and it just wasn't the same. And I get that. I know exactly what that feels like. It's not something that I would ever wish upon anyway. So this decision was not taken lightly and this recommendation from me was not taken lightly. So at that time I was thinking, okay, so I don't know what the variants are and we have all these cases. The nurses at the Elko High School were overwhelmed with contact tracing. At that time I did find out the final numbers. There was 185 plus or minus students that were isolated due to close contacts. So what is on my mind is what is known as the devil's bargain. And everybody who's ever known about what that is that any decision that you make is going to be absolutely terrible. And you've got to pick the best decision of the worst. So in my mind, when I had that conversation Thursday night after I confirmed the 23 cases, I called up Dr. Robinson and I said, we've reached our threshold. And I said, I am absolutely terrified that if we don't stop right now and we close the school down, that what's going to happen is that graduation is going to be affected. Because I have 180 people that are close contacts. I have 23 positives. I have cases in other schools and my job as the health officer is to mitigate the spread of disease. And I couldn't ignore those numbers. I just couldn't. Now, the decision that I had was to keep it open and that we kind of limp along and we get through. And I will tell you right now, if this was 2 months ago, I would have done that. I would have made that decision. Please, let's go, because this virus is something that we're all going to have to deal with. Sooner or later, we're going to have to be, all of us, better at contact tracing, all of us better at everything that we do. But in that situation, I felt in my heart that if we risked graduation, that would be a far greater harmful outcome than if I looked on the calendar and I said 10 full days. We have 10 full days of isolation for freshmen through juniors. And with that would absolutely recover most of those people. And for the seniors who were not there for the last week, they would have a full 14. And then on day 15, they would be able to attend graduation, all walking together. And I thought that was the best outcome. And that was the recommendation that I made. So I stand here and I'm one of those people who is okay with accountability. Leadership is about making tough decisions. And I was able to do that. And I worked with my team and with Dr. Robinson. And those discussions were not easy because we were agonizing over having the seniors lose their last few weeks or their last week in school. I mean, those things were thought of. This was done with a heavy, heavy heart. But at the end of it, we certainly, in my mind, we made the best decision that we could under the circumstances. And so that's the first topic. And if anybody has any questions, we'll wait and then we'll have a discussion. The second topic I wanted to talk about was the future for everyone. I was a graduate of Lowry High School in Winnemucca, and one of my mentors was a man named Jim Salmi. And Jim Salmi was at the high school him and my mom had to have been going for the Guinness Book of World Records for how many years people can teach. And I think he was at 40 and my mom was at 37. So I had this mentor, and whenever I was upset, he would say, well, if you're pointing that finger, Bryce, you must be doing something wrong. And I never understood what he was going to say, but we've all pointed a finger. We all have done it. Believe me, I will sit up here and I will admit, I have looked at the TV and I've said, that is stupid. Pick a president that you don't like. You've probably said that was stupid. Pick the CDC who's done some stupid things, and I represent them. I mean, we point the finger at everyone. But what I haven't, and I think you guys are all knowing what you're getting back about pointing the finger, because I didn't know what the crux of that ending was. But what I don't understand is that after all of us have been through a nation of 600,000 deaths, and instead of bringing us all together, we are more divisive now than we've ever been in our lives. And if 600,000 deaths can't bring us together, we can't have that crucial conversation with each other. We can't sit next to each other and disagree respectfully and say, that's all right. But when it comes down to it, we're going to have a tipping point. And that tipping point is going to be very soon. Because like I was discussing with the high school, when people in high school have not had the opportunity to get vaccinated, I feel bad. For middle school and for elementary, those people are, in my eyes, fish in a barrel. And whether you believe in vaccinations or whether you don't, that's a personal choice. I'm not going to sit up here and tout that, because putting something into your body is your choice. Do I believe in it? Absolutely. But I'm not going to push that upon anyone. But I think that everybody should have the opportunity to do that. And at that point, when we all have had the opportunity for all of our population to be vaccinated, and you've made that choice for yourself, for your children, or for your families, there comes a point to where the finger pointing has to stop. And we have to deal with this with the crucial conversations of mutual respect. And we have to look at ourselves and take some self-accountability. Because the accountability at some point in the future is going to be on us. When you say, well, I don't like you because you did that. And I'm going to say, well, there's consequences for this. And the tipping point is going to be when people do not want to wear masks. That's fine. I'm done. I'm over the mask debate. vaccinations, if you don't want vaccinations, that's fine. But at some point, if you don't want to wear a mask because you don't want to be vaccinated, there are consequences for that. And you have to take that personal accountability. And that's all I want to have in this community moving forward is at some point, it's not the governor's fault. It's not the president's fault. It's not the CDC's fault. It's not the school board's fault. It's not the health officer's fault. When you point the finger, remember that there's 3 fingers pointing back at you, and you have to realize that we have to take some personal accountability for our actions. So with that being said, I wanted to set the tone, and I want to make sure that we have time for some discussions if there's some questions. I am absolutely transparent. I am the anti-politician. So if there's anything that needs to be said, I will speak honestly and openly about it. I will give you what my true belief is and what I think will really happen or whatever you want. But I really appreciate always thinking about when anybody wants to point the finger, I always think about Mr. Salmi and 3 fingers pointed back at me. And for me to tell myself, what is my accountability and what are my consequences for that? And I think that moving forward, all of us need to ask ourselves that question. So with that, I will say thank you to everybody. And if there's any questions from me.
Are there any questions from the members of the board?
I guess the only one would be, first of all, thank you for coming and thank you for everything and all decisions. But how are we looking for graduation? Did we manage to, did it have the effect you wanted? Did we manage to actually isolate it as much as we should have, or were we too slow?
Yeah, I think that it is managed perfectly because we have 15 days. The isolation time of old times, I mean, this is even an extended isolation, is 14 days. And if everybody does what they're supposed to, and meaning that we try to mitigate the exposure as much as we can, we should have all of our seniors graduating and walking together because of just pure statistics. 14 days is the perfect amount of time, even if you got it along. Now, that's not to say that I can control teenagers. I can't. Probably it's hard for parents to control teenagers. It's hard to do that. But we certainly have given the best chance for our seniors to be walking together and with that camaraderie and to do all the events with graduation. And that's what meant the most to us.
Okay, good.
I also want to say thank you. I have a senior at Elko High, so you thinking of the graduations and what the kids missed last year, we appreciate it. I know I agreed with the decision, knowing that graduation was, one of the most important. So thank you.
And I appreciate that. And I'm able to sit up here and, like I said, take accountability for that recommendation. And if someone disagrees with me, that's okay. We can have that discussion as well. But this was a team effort and this was a team decision.
Dr. Putnam, I really appreciate you coming before the board, expressing the information that you're giving to us. I think the decision was a positive decision, even though, as you say, there are no good decisions when you have a choice like this. So
I have not slept in 3 days. It's been weighing on my mind, and I've had so many phone calls and so many emails and so many texts and so many. And I want to just say to everyone, if I haven't got out to you yet, I apologize. There's only so much I can do. I feel bad, but with what we have to come is our seniors walking together, and I think that's a celebration in itself.
for sure. Any other comments? All right. Thank you again, Dr.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right. Okay, item number 1.05, input from the public. This is a period devoted to comments by the general public, if any, and discussion of those comments. In the interest of privacy and due process, the public is requested to not raise personnel issues except in a legally noticed closed personnel session of the board. No action may be taken upon a matter raised. This is a non-action item. And I want to make sure that everyone who is preparing to give their public input, that the board is not going to respond to your public comment for fear that we get into a situation that will violate the open meeting law. So I would ask that, as Dr. Putnam said, we show respect to one another. We can move through this. We want to hear your comments. Please, if you can, use some decorum and just be respectful for everyone in the room. Everybody has an opinion, and we want to hear everybody's opinion that wants to share it with us. So we have also got a limitation of 3 minutes for each presentation. Teresa, our clerk, will be keeping the clock. And I'm going to go through in no particular order the stack of requests. And please state your name and for the record, the mic, speak into the mic, if you would, please. All right. First lady is Debbie Pavlik. Oh. It's over here.
Shy one.
Okay.
You guys can make off.
Thank you.
Is this the mic?
Yes.
Thank you. So hi, my name is Debbie Pavlik, and I attended and graduated from Elko High School, as did my children, and I am a business owner here in Elko. I have deeply thought about what I could say to bring awareness to all of us here to the importance of freedoms, liberties, and rights as a natural born citizen. The 14th Amendment of the Constitution was put in place to protect every citizen from times when a government entity oversteps their boundaries by mandating, forcing, and even manipulating citizens into an experimental shot that has not been approved by the FDA. Normally, all vaccines go through science-based studies and years of animal studies. This is not happening with the COVID-19 shot. I have heard that they are, I have heard that they are announcing over the intercoms in our schools. Now, I don't know if this is true. I'm just saying what I heard. This COVID-19 shot is available without parental consent. It's against the Nuremberg Code to force vaccinations on a person, and informed consent overrides public policy. This is the 14th Amendment. The primary consideration is whether an experimental injection warranted for a disease with a 99.98% survival rate in children ages 0 through 17. This comes straight from the CDC website. Secondly, the masks are damaging our children's self-esteem, ability to communicate with each other, and their oxygen levels. The virus can still get through masks, and many frontline doctors can attest to this. Why are we doing this to our children? This will cause and is causing long-term psychological effects on our children. Do we want to participate and be a part of doing this to our own children and grandchildren? So I'm just asking all of you from my heart to look at what I presented to you, and to also, I don't know, we as people have to look at the repercussions of what these things are doing and how the psychological effects, like I say, of everyone involved. This has been a very traumatic year. And I just want to encourage you to look inside your heart and see if you feel in your heart that this is the right thing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. The next item, we already had it, it was Dr. Putnam. Dan Maher or Maher.
I was asked to put it on the podium. Looks like it's not gonna go. Yes, my name is Dan Molnar. I live in Elko County. I do not have children, so I don't have any in the Elko High School system. However, decades ago, better people than us stood up for the rights of children. So I had the blessing to grow up in a country that was relatively free. First, I want to make a comment about what Dr. Putnam said. He said that respect is very important, and I agree. We cannot have any honest discussion of any problem that we all face without honesty and respect. Now, he mentioned that 600,000 people had succumbed to COVID-19. But I think anyone who's done any research is well aware of the fact that just about every death that they ascribed to COVID-19 had another cause. People were killed in traffic accidents, heart attacks, cancer. But if they tested positive, then they said it was COVID-19. So unless we look at things in an honest fashion and don't try to present a lie as if it's the truth, a reasonable, respectful discussion is not possible. And I think everyone here knows exactly what I'm talking about. We have to show respect for the mothers who carried these children in their bodies for 9 months. And they have dreams and hopes for their children. And by anyone insisting that a vaccine be given is putting them in danger. That's all I have to say.
And Lee Hoffman,
Mr. Chairman, may I defer to the second session? after the-
you may.
Thank
Yes. Richard Montoya.
My name is Richard Montoya. I guess, I don't know, I guess it bothers me a little bit that, bothers me quite a bit that, you know, my daughter and my son come home from school the other day and pretty much blatantly told me that the school was announcing during school hours that there were vaccinations being given at the high school and that they should all go to that and that it's recommended for their health and that a parent wasn't needed. Several of their friends said the same thing. I don't feel it's right. I don't feel we should be pushing this agenda to our children. Our children should have a voice of their own. And in my opinion, you know, worldwide, there's not many cases at all of children dying from this disease. But yet we're pushing it so heavily on our children to wear these masks and to get vaccinated. My daughter was in class the other day and a girl next to her said that she was vaccinated. She took her first shot. My daughter kind of looked at her and the teacher standing right there said, "Hannah, don't look at her that way." She said, "You know, it's for your health to get this vaccination and you guys should really think about it." Whose decision is that? Is that mine as a parent or this teacher's? I mean, what are we pushing towards our children? I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right. And this vaccination is still experimental. I don't think that our children should be forced to have to hear this every single day, that this is for our health. There's just as many people that have died last year from smoking as there was from COVID. So is it about your health? I don't know. But our children have suffered tremendously from this. I have friends that have high school students. I have a senior coming up next year. My son, I graduated with 13 years of perfect attendance. My son had 11 years perfect attendance prior to this COVID, but somehow, some way, he all of a sudden has 59 days missed this year because of the programs that you guys offered here in Elko County. Everything is screwed up. We were on track to be the first father and son in the nation to have perfect attendance. He attended that computer every single day as you guys requested. But your guys' programs were so tore up that it destroyed an attendance record that not many people can do.
Time.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Richard. Brian Gale.
Hello.
How you doing?
I just want to register my opposition to mandating the vaccine. I'm really not comfortable with it. I think the one thing that we've learned is that as a nation, we don't care about what the FDA says. Otherwise, we would be waiting for them to approve this vaccine, air quotes. I am also adamantly opposed to wearing masks, especially the little children. If they're sick, they're gonna stay home. That's what we do. Science is out now, surprise, that there is no transmission of the disease without symptoms. Asymptomatic transmission just doesn't happen, 0%. And that's the whole basis for people without symptoms wearing masks, is so that you don't spread your imaginary disease to somebody else. I am adamantly opposed to it. The question to me is whether we have rule of law or whether we have rule by edict. I think we've seen in this state this year and last year, rule of edict. We've seen an extraordinary taking of people's livelihoods. And who pays for that? I mean, if these people who lost their businesses, they file a taking and the state's, and it's found in court that the state has to pay, who's paying for it? Is it the governor out of his pocket? No, it's me. And I didn't want them to shut down their business in the first place. I would like to register my opposition to mandating or even allowing, even providing this experimental injections for our children. I would like to register my opposition to any child who's not sick having to wear a mask. I wholeheartedly endorse the freedom of anyone who wants to wear a mask to wear a mask. Knock yourself out. Fantastic. I'll take my chances with Mother Nature, who's done a pretty good job for my family. That is all.
Thank you, Brock. Kendra Douglas.
Hi, my name is Kendra Douglas. I attend Elko High School. I'm a junior this year. So I'm here tonight because I am concerned about the teachers pressuring students to be vaccinated. One of my teachers said to my class, "It is your choice whether or not to be vaccinated, but if you're not, I think you're dumb." I'm also concerned about the announcements that were played for the whole school about the mobile vaccine units being parked at the fairgrounds. And I also personally know somebody who is 16 years old who was vaccinated without parental consent. Thank you.
Christy Armbruster.
My name is Dr. Christy Armbruster. I'm a retired pediatrician. I want to speak as my fellow parents here of Elko. We are concerned about the masks and we are requesting from you that we do something in writing. I don't know the legal stuff, something that we will not do mask mandates. You know, if the people are sick, they stay home. If they want to choose to, that's okay. That's their choice. But I think the mandates are done. Reason being, futility per the AORN guidelines. You have to change your mask every 2 hours or it doesn't work. My husband worked as a nurse or as an OR nurse for 15 years. He said, you have to change it out because your humidity from your air changes the permeability. And besides, they're too big anyway, and the virus gets in and out. It doesn't work. They aren't washed properly. They're not worn properly. People mess with them. They don't fit. They don't work. They're futile. Problem two, there are problems with the masks. In medicine, we're taught, do no harm. Unfortunately, the masks are harming. They're causing rashes. They're causing ear problems. They're causing anxiety. Terrible, terrible emotional distress in these young children. It's not good. We need to stop it. Please do what you can in your power. And I talked out with the parents. If it's a mandate, can we get exemptions? We need to do something so that we don't have to do that. Problem two, they're not vaccines, guys. They're experimental use agents. They're not vaccines because they have not been tested until 2023. They're investigational. The federal law prohibits mandating those. However, we know that the federal law has kind of been tweaked a bit. So we want to be proactive with our community to say, we will not mandate those injections, period, the end, for staff, for students, for anybody. They were not used on children until December 2020. Guess what? We don't know the side effects because we don't have the studies because they pushed it through. It's not safe. We have over 4,000 deaths reported on VAERS. We predict only 1% of the people of the side effects are being reported there. 4,000 deaths from the vaccine. Death injections, guys. We cannot have that in our school system. As a mandate, if people choose, absolutely, that is their choice. But they need informed consent. They need to know how they work. If they work, what are the side effects? Do they know about the myocarditis in the adolescence that is popping up? Probably not, because it's new, because we haven't seen it, because it hasn't been out there. Do they know about the 5-month-old daughter who died because she was a breastfeeding girl from a mom who got the vaccine? Do they know about the 17-year-old or the 15-year-old who died? How many deaths do we have from COVID, guys? For kids. We need to do what we can to be proactive and say, no, in Elko County, we will not mandate, period. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Niabi? Strozzi? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Navi Strozzi, a 5th grader at Liberty Peak Elementary. I've come here today because I believe that the newest rules you've put on us are completely unfair. The most recent mandate states that only 4th and 5th grade have to wear their masks. These rules are unfair because if the masks are supposed to be used to stop the spread of COVID, then please explain to me why only 20% of the school is wearing them. The new rules also state that if you've been vaccinated, then you don't have to wear a mask, but 4th and 5th graders can't be vaccinated. Some of us even have a younger sibling that doesn't have to wear a mask. When they live in the same house, ride the same bus, watch the same TV, play in the same backyard, go to the same school, and eat at the same dinner table. I have thought of a solution to this, though. Either all of us wear one or none of us. Also, in the words of Martin Luther King Jr., our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter, and one has the moral obligation to disobey unjust laws. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Nicole Siratek.
Hope your YouTube video doesn't get shut down because I'm going to talk on it. Kind of censored. So my name is Nicole Serotek. I'm a registered nurse. My specialty is critical care, trauma, and flight. I've been a nurse for 10 years, but most importantly, I've been a biochemist for much, much longer. My specialty is actually genetic splicing. I've tracked viruses long before I was a nurse. And so I'm very familiar with contact tracing, genetic sequencing, and things like that. So I'm a little concerned how we're on this runaway train with this virus because we're talking about there's variants. Well, there are multiple variants. And the variant that we're experiencing right now with our teenagers is only a difference of 3 base pairs located on the spike protein. It doesn't change the mortality or the morbidity or the rate for which people will die. It simply spreads faster based off what's called the Red Queen hypothesis, meaning that it has to outcompete the other variants in order to become the dominant viral species. And I just don't understand why nobody knows what's inside their biology textbooks, because this is something that is quite routinely taught at a basic biological level for biological sciences. Another issue that I'm concerned about is we're pushing this, experimental biological agent. It cannot be called a vaccine because Pfizer has never actually applied for the permit for the term vaccine because it's highly regulated. It also kind of doesn't stop you from catching COVID or spreading it either. I'm not sure if most people know that. But what happens is we're pressing this vaccine on the kids for which we don't know anything about. And just for the record, my children are vaccinated, so am I and my husband, because most people like to pull the anti-vaxxer card with me. Now, what happens with these variants is we get them in waves. We knew this in 1918. We saw it, there were 3 waves in 1918. I know because I was part of reconstructing that genetic sequence for the 1918 influenza. I literally had to dig up graves, guys, literally had to dig up graves from 1918. And we resequenced that virus. Now we know that over time, it's called regression toward the mean. It's a statistical term. However, we apply it in biological sciences as well. Over time, the virus will learn to cohabitate with us because it's not intelligent on an evolutionary scale to kill off your host. We know that because look at cold sore viruses. 90% of the world population has it, but most people aren't dropping dead of it. It can happen on occasion. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. Now we're pushing this vaccine, even though it's not a vaccine, but is anyone getting any early treatment? Can you go to your doctor and ask for early treatment? What do they give you? Well, here's maybe some Z-Pack, because I heard that on the news. There are multiple agencies out there like the FLCCC, and you can go to them at covidcriticalcare19.com. And I work closely with a lot of these doctors. The spearhead of that is Dr. Pierre Corey, who spearheads the ivermectin movement and the IMATH protocol. I've personally seen it work along the border of Texas on 2,200 undocumented immigrants that theoretically all should have died. I've also worked with this virus and the MATH protocol in Colombia, Argentina, Venezuela, and also most recently in India. There are treatments. So why are we allowing people to die when I could save 2,200 undocumented immigrants along Texas? And we closed our schools for this? Thank you.
Thank you. Rochelle?
My name is Rochelle Hoover, co-founder of Parents of Elko County. I'm a mother to 8 children, 5 of whom are currently enrolled in Elko County School District. 2 graduated from Elko High. I'm speaking out against the decision to require face coverings or face shields in our schools for any and all future school years. It is a myth that masks prevent viruses from spreading. The overall evidence is clear. Standard surgical masks and cloth offer no protection against virus-sized particles. The size of a virus particle is much too small. A single viron of COVID-19 is 60 to 140 nanometers or 0.1 microns. The pore size in a surgical mask is 200 to 1,000 times larger than that. Wearing a mask to prevent COVID is like throwing a sand at a chain link fence, expecting it to stop the sand. Bacteria are 50 times larger than virus particles. As such, virus particles can enter through the mask pores, yet bacteria remain trapped inside the mask, resulting in the mask wearer being continuously exposed to the bacteria. Requiring children to wear a mask, you are promoting the idea that the mask can prevent or treat a disease, which is an illegal, deceptive practice. It is unlawful to advertise that a product or service can prevent disease unless you possess competent and reliable scientific evidence substantiating that the claims are true. Opinions of media and government officials do not count. And after reviewing all of the studies worldwide, the CDC found no reduction in viral transmission with the use of face masks. All parties mandating the use of a face mask are not only willfully ignoring established science, but are engaging in what amounts to a whole school clinical experimental trial. The FDA EUA for surgical and cloth face coverings explicitly states, quote, "The labeling must not state or imply that the mask is intended for antimicrobial or antiviral protection or related to or for use such as infection prevention or reduction." As such, forcing children to wear masks or similarly forcing us to use any other non-FDA approved medical product without the child and parental consent is illegal and immoral. And before one more person tells me that they need to use face shields in lieu of masks, let's not forget that children have been repeatedly shown not to be drivers of this contagion, and it is well accepted that children have a statistically 0 chance of dying from COVID-19. The CDC shows the K through 12 mortality rate is 3/100,000th of 1%. The atrocities that our kids have been put through in Nevada are reprehensible, and us as parents have had enough. And we are standing up and taking our county back. We don't care what they do in Las Vegas, and we don't care what they do in Reno, because this is Elko. Thank you.
Misty Atkins.
Hello, my name is Misty Atkins. I'm a mother of 3 children, 2 in Elko schools, Elko County schools, middle school and high schooler. My 3rd child, 7 years old, I homeschool him because I wasn't going to allow him to be any part of this circus. I'm speaking out against the COVID-19 supposedly called a vaccine. It's actually an experimental injection. Any compulsory COVID-19 vaccine requirements is a violation of federal law. COVID-19 vaccines are not approved by the FDA. The COVID-19 vaccines are only approved under emergency use authorization, EUA, for investigational use only. COVID-19 vaccines lack requisite studies and are not approved medical treatment. The right to avoid the imposition of human experimental, fundamental, rooted in Nuremberg Code in 1947 has been ratified by the 1964 Declaration of Helsinki and further codified in the United States Code of Federal Regulations. In addition to the United States regarding itself as bound by these provisions, the principles were adopted by the FDA and its regulations requiring the informed consent of human subjects for medical research. It is unlawful to conduct medical research, even in the case of an emergency, unless steps are taken to secure informed consent on all participants. Businesses are not shielded from liability with experimental agents. Under the 2005 PrEP Act enacted by Congress, pharmaceutical companies that manufacture EAU vaccines are shielded from liability related to injuries and damages caused by their experimental agents. However, any employer, public school, or any other entity or person who mandates experimental vaccines on any human being is not protected from liability from any resulting harm. While vaccine manufacturers may be shielded from liability, your institution is not protected, and neither are you. You are hereby on notice that if you illegally or irresponsibly mandate EUA medical therapies on students, such as experimental COVID vaccine candidates, we have no choice but to take legal action, and you may be personally liable for resulting harm. I urge you to comply with the FDC Act in terms of the EUA and its accompanying fact sheet, and to advise all employees, teachers, faculty, everyone involved, if they're right to it, or that they have a right to accept or refuse any COVID-19 vaccine, and any other course of action is contrary to federal law. Governor's mandates are not laws. You have the power, you need to take it back. Give choice back to parents, or you give us no choice.
That was the last requests that I had right here. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Pedro, come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Pedro Marin. I'm with Battleborn Media Networks. And I didn't plan on speaking, but one of the fun facts that I'm going to throw out is that we have all seen with this whole mask mandate for all these kids, a minimum of probably at least 8 people have spoken into this microphone without a mask. And we are requiring kids to go to school, and yet we're letting all these people talking to this microphone, and you don't think they're getting their germs on it or whatever it is that comes out of your mouth when you're speaking into a microphone. And as someone that his job is to speak into a microphone, I can guarantee you that I know there's stuff on this microphone. So I just wanted to point that fun fact out. The other thing that I want to say too is with kids, we had to fly my daughter to Reno, life flight her, emergency life flight her. She was positive with COVID. And the specialist even told us that with kids, that she has not seen one child come through that was affected by COVID. My daughter was sick, and she was only sick because she had a different infection as well. And COVID did not affect her. My daughter was sick for 1 day, and after that, she was fine. She was running around the hotel room once she was discharged from the hospital. It affected me and her mom more than it affected her. And if anything, it didn't really do much to me at all. The only thing I had was chills and my loss of smell. And that's it. So to really punish these kids with that, and to be here as a board, trying to require kids to wear a mask as we all sit here and talk into a microphone with no masks on, but yet we're requiring the kids to wear masks. And then with the vaccination, people have told me that I don't take this thing seriously. And I look at them and I honestly just shake my head because I'm done responding. But I will tell this board that I take this very seriously. If you want to get the vaccination, get the vaccination, but don't force it upon me. I have had people, I tested positive and I am negative now, but I've had people tell me, try to force me and say, you should still get the vaccination. And I just look at them and say, why the heck would I get the vaccination when I've already had it and I'm recovered? My daughter had it. My wife had it. Why would I even think about getting the vaccination? And why would I even think about giving it to my daughter? It did absolutely nothing. She's had it. She obviously has the antibodies. And if anybody remembers, when this whole thing first started, they were using people's blood to do tests to do tests to come up with this vaccination. They were using their blood because they had the antibodies for COVID. So if you don't remember that, that's what was going on. And I understand my 3 minutes are up, but I wanted to mention that. So thank you. And I am totally against any pushing. And I think it was a wrong decision to have the location be at a school property. So thank you.
Thank you, Pedro. Anyone else? Oh. Miss Mosley.
My name is Michelle Mosley. I have a senior and a freshman. Monday, the week that you shut the school down, my daughter was contact traced, and I wasn't notified until Thursday. We did a rapid test. She never took her mask off because she's so afraid of you guys taking graduation from her. She is a senior. She has went downhill until you let them back into school. And now you're taking her senior way again. Her senior year, she lost last year and this year. What else can they do? You've got these masks shoved down their throats. You're forcing this vaccine on them. And it shouldn't have been at school grounds at all. That absolutely was wrong on everybody's part, on the county, on the city, everyone. My family doesn't believe in the vaccine. You take the vaccine, that's fine. But don't force that upon my children. Give them their own chance to fight this virus off because they have an immune system for that reason. Absolutely for that reason. And my son played football the whole spring season. He was tested every single Thursday, and temperature checked. If he registered below a 92 on a temp check, he didn't play and he didn't practice. You got to be consistent with everyone, not just one sports team. You got to do it for baseball, for all of them. You can't single out one team because they have contact. This isn't fair to the seniors. It's not fair to the ones who played the sports. You got to stop with the masks. Make it non-mandatory. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't. I mean, stop forcing other views onto our kids. That's not fair.
Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Hoffman.
Mr. President, thank you. I just have a sort of a procedural suggestion for the board in light of all the comments you've heard tonight. I'm sorry, I should have identified myself. Lee Hoffman, resident of Elko County. The decision to shut down the high school last week, I know was not made by a vote of the board. Having served on the Elko City Council for a number of years, I understand that things don't work that way. The board doesn't get called together and be asked to vote on everything. As I recall, the board adopted a policy regarding COVID back in November, October. I don't remember exactly when it was, but you adopted a policy. I can only assume that Dr. Robinson and the rest of the staff followed that policy in arriving at the decision that was made. Because again, you can't be all called together every time something comes up and you have to rely on your staff. I am just suggesting that over the next few months, this board review, relook at the policy and have that policy revised before the next school season. Again, taking into account the comments of your citizenry and as things develop, but so you are further prepared for the fall season. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you for your comments. I'm sure the board has taken all those in, and we have additional materials that you've provided for us to look at that. And I thank you for being here and expressing your concerns. Moving on to item 2.01, the superintendent's report, which is a non-action item. Dr. Robinson.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of updates or items to update the board and the community on. So I'm going to ask Mr. Keith Walls, the Director of Elementary Education, to provide those updates, please.
All right. Mr. Walls.
Okay, for the most part, I wanted to update our plans for COVID-related grant funding that we know about so far and that we're able to apply for, and our plans to utilize those funds. We're working towards right now developing, well, we pretty much have developed our summer programs. We're going to have summer school for middle school and high school kids starting in June, I believe the first Monday after school releases. We will have our ESY program in the special ed department run during the month of July, and we'll have an elementary school summer program in August for 3 weeks. And that's one of the items that we're using some of our grant funding to support. We are developing intervention programs, RTI type programs to be implemented in the school year next year with those grant funding. We're looking at adding to our health offices, adding personnel to our health offices. to assist in contact tracing, several other duties related to just getting kids back in school and having kids in school and not be out for any period of time. We'll be securing additional mental health services for our students and staff. We will be using some of the grant funding to assist in providing online coursework, having those online courses available for students and families who should choose to stay online for next school year. We've been working on ventilation upgrades throughout this school year, and we'll continue to do that. And we'll utilize some of our grant funding for that. And we're working to identify our most at-risk students. My time up? Can I be done?
Your time's up. Time's up.
Identifying our most at-risk students, because we know and we've heard from our focus groups that, and our staff and our parents, that those most at-risk populations, whether it be socioeconomic, ethnicity, the different groups of students have been the most impacted by not being in school this whole school year. So working on identifying programs and positions that we can put in place to target assistance for those kids. On the topic of focus groups and parental and community input, all of our schools have held focus group meetings, and a lot of you guys participated in those meetings. That input will continue to be collected, and I'm sorry that so many of our community members got up and left, because one of the messages I wanted to send was anybody who wants to participate and wants to be part and wants to have their voice heard, please feel free to contact the school principal of your schools. We are continuing to collect information and feedback so we can make choices as we go along and make the best programs for our kids in Elko County and move closer to everything being as normal as possible. Anything I forgot, Dr. Robinson?
Montello.
Excuse me?
Montello.
Montello, that's right. So you have asked us to research the possibility of opening up Montello School again. At this point, we've examined the building. Casey, I think, sent somebody out there, and the building's actually really in good shape. We have identified all of the kids in Wendover schools whose address is identified as a Montello address. And our next step is we're going to work on contacting personally all of those families in the Montello area, ask them which school they would choose to go to, so that we really do have a hard number of what the student population would be at that school. And then we can make a determination as to whether we pursue opening that school.
Because at this time, we have no idea how many kids are there right now. It would be a mixed school though, right?
What do you mean by mixed school?
The teachers would have to.
Yeah, so it would be, if we open up that school, it would be run in the same format as our other rural schools, so kindergarten through 8th grade.
Okay.
Our reports of kids with that address is around 10 or 12 kids. The community members who approached us, if I remember right, I'd use the number 18. So I'm 24.
Say we've got it right here.
I'm working on identifying who all those were, probably coordinating with you. And we also want to communicate with each of those families to ensure whether which school they would choose.
Okay.
Yeah, there might be some who would choose to stay in Wendover, or they might all choose to go to Montello, but we want to be able to know that information.
My last question, I guess, would be what timeline are we looking at? Is it something we can make happen partially in this fall, or are we looking at next year? Well, the following year, I guess.
If we're to do it, if the numbers support doing it, we would intend on attempting to do that for next school year. You know, if all of these numbers fall through, our next step is advertising a teaching position, and we do have to have a teacher before we can open a school.
And there are other pieces too. I just want to add, we examined transportation. That's a big piece of it. We're looking at food service. We've taken care of all those logistics, and now we're at that point, and everything works favorably. We're being able to open Montello schools, and now we've got and see what the numbers will be, and then that last step would be hiring a teacher. So.
Okay. Well, good. Thank you.
I just have a comment basically that, you can't just look at Montello, because you have a lot of a lot of areas around there, you know, the Gamble Ranch, et cetera,
And-
that
Yep, and I,
typically, that don't really fall under the Montello address.
and that's why searching addresses in, like Infinite Campus, for example, that's why I'm assuming I'm finding the numbers that I'm finding, and there's differences that we can identify those kids. So, well, I also asked the principals to visit, like, for example, with the bus driver and collect the names of the kids that ride the bus. So hoping that we can get an accurate number and
Okay.
make contact with them.
Yeah, well, I would just suggest you get with Shannon because I think
Mhm.
she knows, so.
Mhm.
But thank
Any-
you. Thanks
any
for
other
looking into that.
questions?
Absolutely.
Like that sounds really good if we can get this put together and things can happen, especially by this coming fall. So,
Okay.
thank
All
you.
right.
All right. Next item is item 3.01, receipt, review, and possible agreement approval of an amendment to the interlocal agreement between the Elko County School District and the Nevada Office of Military for possible action. The agreement that we see, I believe, has been amended because the language with the National Guard for the National Guard Challenge Academy out in Carlin had some information in it regarding the funding, and it was under the old distributive school account, the DSA. And we found out that it's the new per pupil funding plan that is being discussed currently down in the Nevada legislature. So does any of the board members have any questions other than what you have seen with the agreement?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the amendment to interlocal agreement between the Elko County School District and the Nevada Office of the Military, and direct that document be signed by the president, clerk, and superintendent.
Second.
All right, it's moved by Teresa, seconded by Candace, that we approve the amendment to the interlocal agreement. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and the motion is passed. Thank you. Item 3.02, receipt, review, and approval of the final budget for fiscal year 2021-22 school year for possible action. Julie.
Hello.
Just double check with me. Sorry, we're just getting a name for the record really fast. You got it, Cassie. Go ahead. I
Okay.
think Jim's ready.
Go ahead, Julie. I'm sorry.
No problem. First, I apologize that your first draft on Thursday changed. I got a call from the state requesting a few changes. So the general fund numbers changed a little bit. The changes requested were in the beginning fund balance. So that's mostly what changed, and I made a summary sheet to kind of track that for you. The expenses, since the intent was to approve the tentative budget as final, and then once we have more concrete revenue estimates, we can change it again in December. So I did decrease expenses by about 250,000, but I moved it to contingency just in case we need it. We can pull from that as we go. I budgeted the benefits a little bit high due to the current climate in our expenditures. The other funds I left the same as the tentative budget. Do you have any questions over what you've looked at?
With regards to the insurance that you said,
Yeah.
do you think that the numbers that we have now will kind of offset so we're not having to augment and go back and forth with that particular fund?
Yeah, that's why I budgeted that line a little high, so we'd be okay. And I'm hoping we shouldn't use all that, but that was just in case. Like for, the $1 million check that you'll see in account payable,
Yeah,
it was budgeting just in case we needed to do another one of those next year.
okay. And you're fairly comfortable with those particular numbers because that is one of the budget categories that seems to be continually needing attention.
It does. It's tracked throughout the month. Yeah. It should be, and we'll track it as we go, and we can augment in December if we need to. But I think that should be plenty high. I don't think we'll run out of budget for that.
Okay. Questions from the board? Is there a motion?
I move to approve the final budget.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Luke, seconded by Ira to approve the budget as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and the budget is approved. Moving on to the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
All right, moved by Luke, seconded by Ira, to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion?
Just one question for Mike. How is this making us look for fall now? Our numbers.
Today, we hired 50 new employees.
50?
50, yeah.
Okay,
We've conducted approximately 60 transfers in the process of this. And unfortunately, we still have 65 vacancies.
65?
65.
Thank you.
And that 65 includes these on here.
Yes.
okay. Other questions? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and the consent agenda passes. Moving on to board matters, 5.01, report from our NASB director, Mr. Wines.
Deb Oliver wanted to comment on SB 450, and that's the bill about the school district's bond issues rolling over into there generally was school districts were in favor of it. The pushback is there's not a lot of voter control over. You get a district that starts spending a lot of money the voters don't have any control over, getting it shut down, and there was a lot of opposition in the state legislature about that. And I don't know how it turned out.
Okay.
Haven't heard back from.
All right. Any questions for NASB representative? All right. Items from board members. This is a non-action item.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to request that on our next agenda, that we have an item that is about the masks and vaccines, so that this board is able to discuss how to go forward with maybe the possibility of writing a letter to the governor, allowing us to have local control over that decision. I would also like to have someone, preferably legal counsel, tell this board what the consequences are. You know, specifically, if we were to go ahead and issue our own mask mandate, or, you know, or well, right now, we don't have to really worry about a vaccine mandate because it has not been mandated. But I would like to know if the state can legally remove funding from our district, since the Nevada Constitution requires that the state provide education. So those are some questions I have had for quite some time. I would like to have those answered by someone, like I said, preferably legal counsel, but to have this on the agenda so that the board as a whole can just discuss how we can move forward.
We definitely can do that. Other items?
Go
ahead.
No, you're good. I want to say
Robert,
thank
you're
you.
up.
I want to say thank you for everybody that came out and talked, brought some stuff to our attention. We appreciate all the comments. We listen. Everybody thinks we don't listen, but we do. I've been in that seat, so I have felt that. But I also want to make sure we're looking into some of the issues that, were brought up tonight, and see what we can figure out and what we can do about them.
Okay. Luke?
I'd like to, several things. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming in tonight. It's always too bad that everybody leaves before we can actually talk more openly about different things. I would second Candace about some kind of way to push back on the mask mandate, at least to give a choice to the families. Because it doesn't make sense on a child's point of view if their sister and brother don't have to, but they have to, especially in the younger ages and the older ages. It doesn't quite make sense, like that young lady pointed out, a fifth grader from Liberty. That being said, I'd like to see as well, if next meeting we could talk, maybe have a meeting with the county and see if we can have some kind of backing from the county in the case, if we're going against the mask mandate, if that doesn't get dropped off in June 1st. Because I do hear some rumors that it's all going to be dropped in August, but as we know, rumors are rumors. And I'd rather have some kind of, especially for dealing with children, because there's always two sides of the story. There's the people who don't want the mask, but there are the people who do. So what are we going to do for the kid who's 10 years old and he has to wear a mask because his parents tell him to? How are we going to deal with the fact that he could get bullied in school if he's the only one that has a mask? That's not fair either. So I'd like to see both sides on that end as well, and what we can do to permeate that issue. The other issue, I would like to see if we could actually distance ourselves as a school district from the vaccination. And I understand that we want to try to accommodate different agencies because we're on our properties, but can we actually just distance ourselves? Not saying yay or nay, just so that we don't fall into this kind of situation that actually happened today, which I think could have been alleviated if, I don't know if this one could have been alleviated, I guess, but just to distance ourselves, because it is not our business to do that as a school district anyway. I don't know if the county has anything to say about that or not, or
I can give my comments with the presidential chair.
Yeah,
President, so
Mr. Carr?
John Carr, Chairman of Elko County Commission. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the one in Elko was actually on the fairground property, and that was simply just a logistics of that's where it was also after the testing, because it's a big open parking lot. As for Spring Creek being on the campus itself, I'm sure we're more than happy to try to locate that so that's not as obvious and some of the confusion on, because I've never heard of the county sure has never pushed that it's mandated. And I didn't know of anybody in the school that was mandating it either, but to alleviate some of that confusion, I'm sure we can work with Jesse Barr on some other facility that would actually be, and so that's a very reasonable request. As for the fairgrounds, we can obviously move that more over by the public health office as well, just so that's not that perception.
Yeah, I just want to try to maybe move away from that. And to give both, like I say, both parties, you have both sides are emotionally and are strong on each side. People should have access to vaccination areas, and people who don't want to shouldn't be confused.
Absolutely, and the county was more, once again, logistics of FEMA putting that, but it's not a county vaccine wagon or whatever you'd like to call it. But no, I think Dr. Putnam and Amanda and the county would be more than happy and understand the situation to move that not way out into North 40 up Fifth Street, but yes, find a location right on by the campus.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
And that was it for me.
We do have another place for public comment again. Okay, that'd be more appropriate, I think. Okay,
All right, I just want to add that I attended the first meeting of the Guidance Curriculum Advisory Committee today. And we've got a long way to go to work on that, but anyone who has any thoughts or input on curriculum development or curriculum programs that would go along with the guidance department, feel free to contact me or your school counselors and share your thoughts. Like I say, there's a lot of things to work through on that. And then also just congratulations to all of the athletic teams that finished up competition this week. I'm in Spring Creek, so congratulations to the boys and girls track and field teams for being the regional champions. That was pretty awesome. And congratulations to all the other athletes who finished up competition this week. And we're looking forward to graduation.
all right. Other comments from board members? I do have one item that I would like to have on a future agenda. I've received several emails regarding the media specialists and the assignments of those out at Sage and the other elementary schools. I think those media center individuals are very, very important, and we need to see if there's a way that we can maintain the quality of our media centers. And if that means looking at additional personnel or whatever, but I would like to get more information on what the district's plan is for those media centers.
And if I may, I might be able to give you that information now, if that would be helpful.
Okay, yeah.
We can certainly add it for future discussion, but I can tell you that we've received some really great input and ideas in regards to enhancing the program and the position of the media specialist, and particularly in the larger areas that we have. And we were able to, in researching the grant for the money that we are receiving, and we've talked about the CARES money, the second round of CARES money. And I've also mentioned the American Recovery Plan, and there's $6 million in the American Recovery Plan, and there's $2 million, I believe, in the CARES. Did I get that right? And so we're looking at that and looking at the specifications for each one of those grants. And we're able to utilize the positions in ways to help support academic recovery. That is going to be a main focus of certainly the ARP money, but also anything that was impacted by COVID, and that would be academic recovery. And therefore, ultimately, we are going to be able to have a full-time position at Sage, full-time position, Spring Creek L, and also the two schools that we're sharing in Elko, we're able to do that as well. But the time that we have that grant, and because we're able to provide intervention for academic recovery as a result of it.
Okay, very good, very good. If we have no other comments from board members, we'll move on to item 6.01, approval of the accounts payable for possible action.
I move to approve the accounts payable.
I second.
All right, it's been moved by Iris, seconded by Luke. Any disclosures?
And I will be disclosing that I have a family member who's listed on the accounts payable, so I will, or their employer is listed on the accounts payable, so I will be abstaining.
All right.
And I will be abstaining because my employer is on the accounts payable as well.
All right.
I had a question. Somebody can answer me on page 12. It says additional insurance funding for $1 million. Is that what Julie was, is that what you were referring to earlier?
We have had to advance insurance premiums for a while. This year, the claims were higher than expected. There was over $1 million just in COVID claims. And then this last month, there were a few individuals who incurred higher claims than usual. So they requested another $1 million on top of our premiums to help pay for those. We're hoping that $1 million is enough, but they warned us they might need another couple hundred. thousand before the end of June. But we were gonna start with that million and see how if claims level out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, I noticed on, oh, sorry.
Just a quick question. Would it be possible on the weeks, the meetings that it is, sorry, would it be possible on the weeks that's relevant, obviously? On top of the accounts payable, we get another annex of what monies on some programs we're getting refunded. So we get a better idea of what's going on, for example, with the food system or with some CARES money, so that we can balance it out, so we can see what programs are working, what programs we're taking advantage of as well.
We can look into that, yeah. For the CARES money, I'm not sure we're 100% sure what will get refunded yet, are we?
With any of the grant funds, we have to do a monthly reimbursement claim for that. And we've received our first pot of the CARES money, which everyone calls CARES, that's the ESSER-1. The 2.2 million is the ESSER-2, which we have not completed our application yet because some of that is relevant to the focus groups. And then the ARP application, the Department of Ed hasn't released that yet.
So just to clarify, out of the total checks paid, you'd like to see kind of what's being offset by grant money? Or-
Yeah, if
Okay.
just to get a better
Yeah.
precise view of it.
Yep, sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I had noticed also with the $1 million that you brought up, there was a 500,000 transfer as well. That's the normal.
The normal advance on
Yeah.
insurance premiums. Yep.
Okay.
And at what point do we, 'cause I recall one of my first meetings, we were talking about looking at another insurance situation. Is that something we can revisit? Was something we should revisit? Or is it even possible?
Typically, that's an item that is taken up by negotiations. There's triggering language, I believe, in there. I'm getting a nod back here from Mr. Smith. So, yeah, it's something that I think that all of us need to definitely be keeping an eye on to address that. Because that's a significant amount each month. So, all right. I apologize. Did I have a motion? I did have a motion. Luke?
I motioned, I believe.
Yeah, moved by Luke, seconded by Ira. All those in favor of the accounts payable signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and we get the accounts paid. Moving on to 7.01. The final public comment. Yeah, come forward, please.
Are you going to be more than 3 minutes? Should I start the timer?
My name's Kate Brown, and I just wanted to kind of go off what Mr. Gerber had said about alleviating confusion with the vaccine truck. I don't know what it's called. To possibly not utilize the school phone system to call parents. That makes it seem like the school system, the school board, because I believe that has to come from you guys, no? Who has access to call everybody on file?
On the robocall?
Yes.
That's something that's done through the schools.
Each individual school, and then
side.
isn't there a top tier where you guys have access to call?
Right, the district
The district,
overall
not
can
the
send
board.
it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can send out calls if there's a district-wide call,
Okay,
and then the schools can do that as well.
okay. Well, I received 2 calls, and to alleviate confusion that it's not coming from that. I mean, I don't believe I've received a flu vaccine call, you know, that's set up outside the hospital or something. So I just didn't know why this may have been different. So just wanted to kind of clarify if we're wanting to completely alleviate confusion.
So just so I understand, what you're saying is you got a call with a caller ID saying it was the school district, the robot saying it was the school district, that vaccines were available.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
Good to go. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
2 bites of the apple, Lee.
Mr. President, my name is Lee Hoffman. I'm actually, I meant my earlier comments to be my only comments, but I have now had a request from my wife Lynn to read something else into the public record.
Okay.
She wanted for your consideration as you consider your policies going forward and vaccinations, et cetera. She wanted to point out that the Pfizer vaccines were tested on there was a test group of 2,200 kids between 12 and 15, with about 1,100 of those receiving the shots. Only about half of those, 660, were following the shots, and they were only followed for about 2 months. There were no deaths in that time, but that is how they determined those vaccines to be safe and effective. The American Association of Pediatrics has now suggested that other vaccines can all be given at the same time. And they admit that they have no data concerning the safety and effectiveness of how that is going to work. In addition, Pfizer has applied for fast tracking what they call a biologics approval. And if this medication is approved as a biologic, that means it can be added to required vaccines. And that's going to lead to an additional possible dilemma for you as a school board. I would just really like to suggest that you educate yourselves as much as you can on some of these issues, because they're way more complex than they appear on the surface. And it would also be very helpful if we have heard without verification that a considerable number of this outbreak at the high school was traced back to a single individual who had been vaccinated. And that's one of those pieces of information that the health officer, the school district should make public, not about the individuals. I understand that there's privacy concerns, but if that's true, that's something else to be taken into account. So thank you for your consideration and your time.
Thank you. Yes, Shannon.
My name is Shannon Glasscock. I live out at the Wine Cup Gamble Ranch. And I just wanted to comment that I enjoyed the dialogue at the beginning of this meeting. And my son especially did, since he has an argumentative essay coming up on face masks. So we appreciate that. But moving on, I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Robinson, for getting the Montello School up and going the research into that, because I know so many things going on right now, and you were able to fit that in, and it means so much to the community out there. And let me know what kind of help you need, and we'll do whatever we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like public comment? All right. Next item on the agenda, 8.01, adjournment of the meeting. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
To sign the budget.
Yeah, all